I died on a Tuesday night in the pouring rain, my skull cracking against the marble foyer like a dropped champagne flute at a black tie gala. My husband, ex-husband by the time the ambulance screamed up Park Avenue, stood over me, his loafers spotless, whispering, "You fell, Delilah." Everyone saw it, but I knew the truth, his hand on my back, the shove that sent me tumbling down those stairs. All because I'd finally cracked open Grandpa's safe and found the letters that would have burned our perfect little empire to the ground. Waking up gasping in my old twin bed, the one with the faded Liberty University sticker peeling off the headboard, I thought I'd gone straight to hell. The clock on my nightstand blinked 2:17 a.m. And sunlight, goddamn sunlight, was slicing through the blinds like it had a personal grudge. I bolted upright, heart hammering, and caught my reflection in the mirror across the room, 22 years old again. All wide-eyed innocence and unchecked ambition. My dark curls a tangled mess from what I now remembered as a hangover from cheap tequila shots at a frat party I'd barely survived. It was 2015. Not the sleek, soulless 2025 where I'd just been murdered in my own penthouse. No. This was the summer after my college graduation. The air thick with the scent of my mom's overwatered petunias wafting in from the garden below. I'd been back home in Greenwich, Connecticut, for exactly 3 weeks, dodging my family's passive-aggressive jabs about my wasted journalism degree while plotting my escape to the city. In my first life or death, whatever you call it, I'd made it to New York, married into old money, and let it all rot me from the inside out. But now I had a second shot. And the first thing I did, before even splashing water on my face, was grab my phone. No iPhone sleek as a razor blade. This was a clunky Samsung with a cracked screen protector, buzzing with texts from my then best friend, Lila, about some bullshit internship at Vanity Fair. My fingers trembled as I scrolled, confirming the date. June 15th, 2015. Exactly 10 years before the night Marcus shoved me down those stairs because I'd threatened to go public with what I'd found in the attic safe. Grandpa Harlan. They said he died in a tragic boating accident off the Hamptons in 1994, a year before I was even born. Heart attack, they claimed, his yacht drifting aimless until the Coast Guard fished it out. My family, Mom, Dad, Aunt Vivian, and that snake of a cousin, Preston, had turned his estate into their personal piggy bank, doling out allowances like we were Victorian orphans. Harlan Whitaker, the oil tycoon who'd clawed his way from a Dust Bowl, Oklahoma farm to Manhattan penthouses, leaving behind a fortune in real estate and shell companies that could have bought half of Connecticut. But he hadn't died. Not like they said. In my first go-round, I'd pieced it together too late. After Mom's third martini-fueled rant about protecting the family legacy, Grandpa had faked his death to escape something rotten at the core of Whitaker Industries, something involving bribes, rigged contracts, and a whistleblower he'd buried deep. The letters in that safe weren't love notes, they were kill shots. Confessions, ledgers, photos of payoffs to senators and union bosses. And one name kept popping up, my own father, Edward Whitaker, who'd been more than just the loyal son-in-law. He'd been the enforcer. I died because I wouldn't let it slide. Marcus, my charming Wall Street prick of a husband, had found out I'd hired a PI to dig deeper. Think of the kids. Dell, he'd cooed, even though our kids were just trust funds in the making. But it was Preston who'd whispered in his ear. Preston who'd always hated me for being the golden girl, the one Grandpa had doted on in stories even from beyond the grave. They pushed me, literally, to keep the lid on the Whittaker dynasty's dirty little secrets.
Now,
Back in this body, this life, I wasn't going to play the victim. I was going to burn it all down, brick by brick, starting with the lies they'd fed me since I could walk. But revenge isn't a straight shot. It's a goddamn maze of moral quicksand, especially when your own blood is holding the map. And the first decision I made, staring at that outdated phone, was the one that would make me question everything. I wasn't telling a soul. Not Mom. Not Lila. Not even the cops when the time came. This was my war. And I'd fight it dirty,
just like they had.
Downstairs, the house was already humming with its usual facade of wasp perfection. Mom, Eleanor, all pearls and Pilates, was in the kitchen, flipping through Town and Country while sipping black coffee strong enough to strip paint. Dad was at the island bar, scrolling Bloomberg on his tablet, his jaw set like he was negotiating a merger instead of eating oatmeal. And there was Preston, my cousin, 24 and already sporting that trust fund glow, lounging in the breakfast nook with a smirk that said he owned the room. "Morning, sleepyhead," he drawled, not looking up from his phone. "Heard you puked in the azaleas last night." "Classy, Delilah." I froze in the doorway, the ghost of that shove flashing behind my eyes, his hand steadying Marcus as I tumbled. His voice later at the funeral. She was always so clumsy. But I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and forced a laugh. Light and bubbly. The Delilah they all expected. Blame the Jell-O shots.
Press.
You weren't exactly Mr. Sobriety yourself. I slid onto a stool, pouring myself coffee, my mind racing. In this timeline, the safe was still locked in the attic of the old Whittaker estate up in Bedford Hills, Grandpa's cottage, now Aunt Viv's weekend retreat. I hadn't inherited the penthouse yet. Hell, I hadn't even met Marcus. But I knew the combination now, 0-4-1-9-4. The year he'd supposedly died. I'd use it soon. First, I needed intel. Eyes on the ground. Mom glanced up, her Botox smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Darling, we need to talk about your future. That internship at the Post? It's a start. But Whittaker women don't fetch coffee. Your father and I were thinking. Perhaps something in the family business." There it was, the hook. In my first life, I'd bitten
hard.
Joined Whittaker Holdings as a junior analyst, which meant signing NDAs thicker than my thigh and ignoring the whispers about creative accounting. It led to Marcus, to the wedding at the plaza, to the penthouse with its endless views and hidden rot. This time, no thanks. I sipped my coffee, meeting Dad's gaze over the rim. His eyes were the same cold blue as Grandpa's in those oil portraits, calculating. Always 3 steps ahead. Actually,
Mom,
I was thinking of going rogue. Freelance. Dig into some real stories.
You know?
Like that old boating accident of Grandpa's. Always wondered if there was more to it. The room went still. Preston's fork clattered against his plate. Dad's tablet snapped shut like a bear trap. Mom's magazine fluttered to the counter. "Delilah," Dad said, voice low, and even the way it got when he was closing a deal or covering one up. "That's ancient history. Harlan was a good man, but accidents happen. Let sleeping dogs lie." Preston snorted, but there was an edge to it.
"Yeah, 'cause
Grandpa's deader than disco. Why dredge up fairy tales?" I smiled, sweet as saccharin. "Just curious. Family legacy and all that."
Inside.
I was cataloging. Preston's twitch. Mom's averted eyes. Dad's knuckles whitening on his mug. They knew.
Of course they did.
The question was how deep the betrayal ran, and how far I'd have to cut to expose it. By noon, I was in my beat-up Honda, gifted by Dad as a graduation consolation prize, barreling up I-95 toward the city. First stop, the New York Public Library's archives. Because if I was going to unravel this, I needed paper trails that predated digital blackouts. My degree in investigative journalism wasn't wasted after all. In my first life, I'd let it gather dust, chasing cocktail parties instead of copy. Not this time. The subway ride to Bryant Park was a blur of hipsters and tourists, the summer heat turning the air into a sticky soup. I flashed my alumni ID at the desk, heart pounding as I requested microfilm from 1994, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, even the tabloids. Harlan Whitaker's death had made headlines. Tycoon vanishes at sea. Fortune in limbo, but the details were scrubbed clean. No mention of the yacht's distress signal being ignored for hours. No whispers of a Second Life insurance policy that never paid out. Just eulogies from family friends, all Whitaker board members. But one article caught my eye, a small piece in the Post about a mysterious drifter spotted in Key West around the same time. A man matching Grandpa's description, tall, silver-haired, with a limp from an old rodeo injury. Dismissed as coincidence. Bullshit. My phone buzzed, Lila, texting about drinks later. In my first life, she'd been my rock until Preston seduced her away, turning her into his spy in my marriage. This time, I'd keep her close, but at arm's length. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. As the sun dipped low, painting the library's lion's gold, I felt the first real thrill of this second chance. Revenge wasn't just about payback, it was about rewriting the script. Grandpa hadn't died before I was born, he'd hidden, waiting for someone to find him. And now, that someone was me. But as I stepped out onto Fifth Avenue, the crowd parting like the Red Sea, a black SUV idled at the curb. Tinted windows. Preston's ride. He leaned out, grinning like a shark. Hop in.
Cuz.
Family meeting. Dad says it's time you learned the ropes. I hesitated, the weight of 2 lifetimes pressing down. Say no, and I'd tip my hand too soon.
Say yes,
and I'd be swimming with the gators on day 1.
Fuck it.
I slid in, the leather cool against my skin. Lead the way.
Press.
But fair warning, I bite back. The drive to the Whitaker Tower on Wall Street was silent, the kind of tense quiet that builds like thunderheads. Preston drummed his fingers on the dash, stealing glances that lingered too long. In my first life, I'd chalked it up to brotherly ribbing, cousins close as siblings. Right?
Wrong.
He'd always wanted what I had, the spotlight, the shares, the unspoken favoritism from a ghost. Grandpa's letters had confirmed it. Preston's father, Uncle Theo, had been the one to handle the yacht's logbooks, erasing entries that showed Harlan alive and arguing with board members days before the accident. The tower loomed like a steel monolith, all glass and arrogance, Whitaker Industries' crown jewel. Dad's office was on the 47th floor, a shrine to excess, mahogany desk the size of a small car, walls lined with first editions and oil paintings of clipper ships. He was waiting, tie loosened, a tumbler of scotch in hand despite the hour. "Delilah," he said, rising to kiss my cheek, dry, perfunctory, like sealing an envelope.
Sit.
We need to discuss your curiosities. Preston flopped into a leather armchair. Legs sprawled like he owned the place. Girl's got a bug up her ass about Grandpa. Thinks there's some conspiracy thriller hiding in the family vault. Dad's eyes narrowed, but he smiled, that Whitaker smile. All teeth and no warmth. It's natural.
Son.
Legacy weighs heavy on the young. He gestured to a sideboard laden with crystal decanters. Drink. Vodka soda, I said, casual as I could manage.
By time.
Gather crumbs. In my first life, this room had been my second home, where I'd signed away my soul for stock options and status.
Now.
It felt like a cage. As the assistant mixed my drink, Dad steepled his fingers. Harlan was a visionary, but flawed. The boating incident. It was messy. Reporters sniffing around, competitors circling. We protected the family. That's what we do. Protected. The word hung like smoke. Protected their asses. More like. I'd seen the ledgers. Millions siphoned into offshore accounts. Bribes to EPA officials to overlook oil spills in the Gulf. Grandpa had discovered it. Confronted them, Theo, Vivian, even Mom's side of the family, and they'd helped him disappear. A new identity. A beach shack in Florida. Monthly wire transfers disguised as charitable donations. Until he stopped cashing them. Started writing letters instead. I get it. I lied. Sipping the drink, tart. Biting. Just how I liked it in my old life. But what if there's more? What if he left something behind? Preston laughed. Sharp and ugly. Like what? Buried treasure? Get real.
Dell.
You're not Indiana Jones. You're a glorified blogger. Dad shot him a look, then softened toward me. If you're serious about joining us, prove it. Start with due diligence on the Hamptons property. Inventory the attic, old files. Nothing exciting. But it shows commitment.
The attic.
The safe.
My pulse spiked.
But I kept my face neutral.
Sure. Dad.
Tomorrow? Tonight, he said, eyes locking on mine. Family first. Always. Preston drove me up to Bedford Hills under a sky bruising purple. The radio tuned to some classic rock station, Springsteen wailing about Born to Run dreams that never panned out. You always were the favorite, he muttered after a while. Grip tight on the wheel. Even dead. He picked you. I turned, studying his profile, the weak chin, the perpetual 5 o'clock shadow he thought made him rugged. What makes you say that? Just a feeling. He glanced over. Smirk fading. Don't fuck this up for us.
Dell.
We're all we've got.
Us.
The family. The lie they clung to like a life raft in shark-infested waters. By the time we pulled up to the estate, a sprawling Tudor mansion with ivy-choked turrets and a garage full of beamers, the moon was high, turning the lawns silver. Aunt Viv was away in Europe, reconnecting with her roots, which meant martinis in Monaco. The place was ours. Preston vanished into the wine cellar for supplies, leaving me to climb the creaking servants' stairs to the attic. My flashlight app cast jittery beams across dust moats and forgotten trunks, the air thick with mildew and secrets. There it was, the safe, squat and iron black, bolted to the floorboards like an accusation. Fingers steady, years of hindsight do that. I spun the dial. 0-4-1-9-4.
Click.
The door swung open. And there they were, bundles of envelopes, brittle as autumn leaves. tied with faded ribbons. Harlan's handwriting, looping and deliberate. For Delilah, when you're ready. I sank to my knees, the first letter trembling in my hands. My dearest girl, it began. If you're reading this, they've tried to bury me twice. Once at sea, once in lies. But blood calls to blood. You were always the one with fire in your veins. Tears blurred the ink. But I read on, the words painting a picture I'd only glimpsed in fragments before. Grandpa hadn't just faked his death. He'd uncovered a cancer in the company. Dad and Uncle Theo rigging bids for fracking rights in Pennsylvania. Poisoning water tables. Buying silence with hush money. Mom knew. Had forged documents to cover audits. And Preston? He'd been groomed as the heir apparent. But Grandpa saw through him, a junkie with a line of credit and a grudge. The evidence was damning. Bank statements, witness affidavits from laid-off workers, even a grainy photo of Harlan alive in 2005, post-death, meeting with a federal prosecutor in a Miami diner. He'd been building a case, slow and secret, planning to hand it to me, his legacy bearer, on my 21st birthday. But they intercepted the courier, burned the originals, and when I started asking questions a decade later, they made sure I stopped asking forever. A floorboard groaned behind me. I whipped around, stuffing the letters into my backpack. Preston stood in the doorway, a bottle of Cabernet dangling from one hand, eyes glassy and red-rimmed. Find what you were looking for, he slurred, stepping closer. The attic smelled of dust and desperation now. More than you know, I said, standing tall, the weight of the backpack a shield. In my first life, he denied everything at my funeral, toasting to better days. This time, I'd make him choke on the truth. He lunged clumsy, fueled by liquid courage, and I sidestepped, letting him crash into a stack of boxes. Old china shattered. A porcelain doll's head rolling to my feet like a guillotine trophy. You bitch, he gasped, scrambling up. Dad warned me you'd stir shit. Dad? Or the whole rotten lot of you. I backed toward the stairs, mind whirring. Call the cops? No. Too early. No proof they'd buy yet. Run? And let him spin it as another family spat. Preston charged again, bottle swinging like a club. I grabbed a loose floorboard, splintery, heavy, and cracked it across his knee. He howled, crumpling, the wine exploding in a crimson puddle. You'll regret this.
Del.
We end you for less.
We.
The pronoun that sealed it. I towered over him, the doll's glassy eyes staring up from the floor. Not this time.
Cousin.
This time. I end you. Leaving him moaning in the dark. I fled down the stairs, backpack thumping against my spine like a heartbeat. The Honda's engine roared to life, tires spitting gravel as I peeled out. Destination, a 24-hour Kinko's in White Plains. Copies first, 10 sets. Mailed to journalists, lawyers, even that crusading DA in Manhattan I'd read about in my old life. But as dawn broke, painting the highway pink, doubt crept in. These letters didn't just torch the family, they'd scorch me too. Mom's face at breakfast. Dad's quiet pride when I graduated. Were they all lies? And Grandpa, if he was alive, where? The letters hinted at a P.O. box in Sarasota. But reaching out meant risking everything. My phone lit up. Dad. Voicemail. Delilah. Preston's hurt. Come back. We can talk this out. Smooth as silk. But I heard the undercurrent. Threat.
No.
I floored it toward the city, the skyline rising like a promise. Revenge was a bitch, but so was I. And this story? It was just getting started. The all-night copy shop smelled like toner and stale donuts. The clerk, a grizzled vet with tattoos snaking up his arms, barely glancing at me as I fed stacks of letters into the machine.
Clickwhir. Clickwhir.
Each duplicated nail in the Whitaker coffin. I labeled the envelopes meticulously. Rachel Maddow at MSNBC. The editor at ProPublica. Even a wild card to the New Yorker's fact-checker desk. One set for me, sealed in a safety deposit box under a fake name, Delilah Jones. Nod to the anonymity I'd craved in my journalism dreams. By 6 a.m., bleary-eyed and buzzing on vending machine Red Bull, I was back on the road, this time south toward Florida. The letters mentioned Sarasota, a safe harbor P.O. box, and a code phrase, Thunder Road, Springsteen's anthem for misfits chasing redemption. If Grandpa was alive, that's where I'd find him. But first, a pit stop in D.C. to the SEC's anonymous tip line, because white-collar crime doesn't unravel itself. Interstate 95 stretched like a vein pumping me south, the radio cycling through ads for mesothelioma lawyers and trucker diners. My mind replayed the attic brawl on loop, Preston's face twisting in rage, the bottle shattering like my illusions. In my first life, I'd idolized him, Big Brother vibes. Late-night confessions over stolen scotch. He'd confess plenty. All right, how he'd dose my drinks at parties to loosen me up, how he'd leaked my emails to Marcus to sabotage my career. Cousinly love. Whitaker style. A sign for a rest area flickered by, and I pulled off, killing the engine in a haze of exhaust. Splashing water on my face in the grimy bathroom, I stared at the mirror cracks spiderwebbing like family ties. 22 again. But the eyes? They were 32, hardened by betrayal's forge. What was I doing? Racing into the unknown? Mailing those letters was a grenade with the pin half pulled, one wrong toss, and I'd blow up too. No job. No allies. Just a backpack of dynamite and a ghost's breadcrumbs. But hesitation was death. Twice over. I texted Lila a half-truth. Road trip epiphany. Call you from the Keys, and hit the gas. Windows down. Wind whipping my curls into a frenzy. Bruce Springsteen came on. Thunder Road, and I cranked it, singing along like a prayer. It's a town full of losers. And I'm pulling out of here to win. D.C. was a blur of marble monuments and security checkpoints. I parked in a garage near the Hoover Building, FBI first, because Grandpa's story screamed federal, fraud, obstruction, maybe even conspiracy to murder if the yacht accident held water. The tip line was a nondescript drop box in a lobby that echoed like a tomb. I stuffed an envelope, redacted copies, no names, and bolted, paranoia prickling my neck. Were they watching already? Dad's reach was long. Whitaker donors sat on every oversight committee. Southbound again. The landscape shifted, Jersey sprawl to Delaware beaches. Then the humid choke of Virginia. My phone stayed dark, no blow-ups yet. Maybe Preston was nursing his knee, spinning yarns about a slip. Good. Let them underestimate me one more time. Night fell over the Carolinas, stars punching through like accusations. I checked into a Super 8 in Fayetteville, the kind of place where the AC rattles like gunfire and the Bible in the drawer is the only thing not sticky. Curled under threadbare sheets, I pulled out the letters, poring over them by phone light. Grandpa's voice leaped off the page, folksy, fierce, the Oklahoma drawl bleeding through even in ink. Dealey, he'd sign off. A nickname from Mom's stories. The world's a machine, and we're the grease. But sometimes, you gotta seize the gears. Don't let 'em grind you down. One envelope stood out, heavier, sealed with wax.
Inside.
A key, brass, ornate, and coordinates scribbled on a napkin, 27.3314 degrees north.
82.5307 symbol stopnia W.
Sarasota Bay. A boat slip? A safe house? My gut twisted. If this was a trap, some posthumous loyalty test from a man I'd never met, it was a hell of a way to start my revenge tour. Sleep came fitful. Dreams of staircases and shattering glass. Woke to rain lashing the window. A text from Mom. Darling, Preston's in the ER. Twisted ankle.
Poor thing.
Come home. Love.
M.
Lies layered like lacquer. I deleted it. Hit the road. Florida welcomed me with a slap of heat. Palm fronds slapping the windshield like judgmental hands. Sarasota sprawled lazy and affluent. Condos hugging the Gulf. Retirees in golf carts zipping past. The P.O. box was in a strip mall post office. Fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets. I approached the counter, heart in my throat, and slid over Grandpa's key. Box 194. Please. The clerk, a sun-mothered woman with cat-eye glasses, eyed me. Relation? Granddaughter. The word felt foreign, a claim I'd never staked. She nodded, unlocking the brass door. Inside, another envelope, this one fresh, postmarked 2 weeks ago. My breath hitched. He was alive. Or someone was playing puppet master. Miss Whitaker, the clerk said, holding it out. This one's marked urgent. I tore it open right there, ignoring her raised brow. Harlan's script again. Dealey, if you're reading this, you've come calling. Thunder Road at Slip 19. Siesta Key Marina. Midnight. Bring fire, not fear.
Ash.
Midnight. 8 hours to kill. I bolted to a beachside motel. The Gulf's waves crashing like applause. Showered off the road grime. Then paced the balcony. Phone in hand. Should I call the cops? No. Harlan's paranoia was mine now. Feds could be compromised. Lila? Tempting. But she blabbed to her boyfriend.
Who'd blab too? No.
Solo it was. As dusk bled into night, I drove to Siesta Key. The marina a constellation of masts bobbing in the dark. Slip 19. A weathered Chris-craft. Nameplate faded to Wanderlust. I boarded soft-footed, the deck creaking under my sneakers. Grandpa. Whisper first, then louder. Harlan Whitaker? A shadow detached from the cabin, tall, lean.
Moving with a hitch in his step.
Silver hair caught the dock light, eyes sharp as a hawk's under bushy brows. He was older than the photos, gaunt from years on the run, but unmistakable. My grandfather.
Alive.
Delilah, he rasped, voice like gravel under tires. Knew you'd find me. Blood don't lie. I lunged, hugging him fierce. The dam breaking. He smelled of salt and pipe tobacco, arms wrapping around me like an anchor. They killed you, I sobbed. Or tried. And then they killed me. He pulled back, hands on my shoulders, searching my face. Killed you? Girl. What the hell? We sank to the bench. The story spilling out. My first death. The shove. The safe. The letters. His face darkened with each word. Fists clenching. Bastards. Edward always had ice in his veins.
But you.
You're here.
How?
Doesn't matter. I wiped my eyes. What does ending them? I sent copies. Press.
Feds.
It's done. He nodded slow, a tear tracking down his cheek. Proud of you.
Dealy.
But this fire? It'll burn hot. You ready for the ashes? We talked till the stars wheeled, plodding over lukewarm coffee from a thermos. Harlan had more evidence, hard drives, recordings, buried in a storage unit up in Tampa. He'd been feeding tips to a retired agent, building a case since his death. Together, we'd light the fuse. But as dawn crept in, my phone exploded. Voicemails from Dad. Furious Preston. Slurring threats. Even Aunt Viv. Shrill and accusing. Where are you? Delilah? This isn't you. It was me. The real me. And the real war was just beginning. The Tampa storage unit was a concrete crypt off I-275. Unit 47B smelling of rust and regret. Harlan jimmied the lock with a crowbar from the boat. Old habits, he grunted, and we hauled out 2 duffels. Zip drives etched with dates. Cassette tapes labeled Theo Confess 98. A laptop older than dirt, but encrypted like Fort Knox. This is the motherlode, he said, slapping the bag. Enough to bury M under RICO charges. We retreated to Wanderlust, moored safe in the mangroves, and set up shop on the fold-out table. Harlan booted the laptop. Password. Thunder Road. Naturally, and files bloomed like digital weeds. Emails chaining Dad to lobbyists. Audio of Uncle Theo bragging about disappearing, a whistleblower in a car wreck that looked too much like Grandpa's yacht ploy. My stomach churned. This wasn't abstract greed. This was blood on their hands, workers dead from poisoned wells, families ruined for quarterly profits. Edward was my son-in-law. Not blood. Harlan spat, cueing a tape. Dad's voice crackled through tinny speakers. Harlan's onto us. Theo. We make the accident stick, or we're all swimming with the fishes. Laughter followed. Then static. I hit pause. Bile rising. Mom? She was in on it. Harlan's face crumpled. Eleanor. She loved the life too much. Signed the papers. Kept the books. Thought it was protecting you girls. Girls. Plural. Me and my phantom sister. The one they'd lost to leukemia when I was 5, a story I'd swallowed whole. But the files whispered otherwise. A cover for an abortion. Hushed up to preserve the Whitaker image. Mom's grief had been guilt, funneled into suffocating love. We expose it all, I said. Voice steel. No mercy. Harlan eyed me sidelong. Even family? Preston's young. Misguided. Preston held me down while Marcus pushed. The words hung.
Raw.
Grandpa winced, but nodded. No more kid gloves. We spent the day digitizing, uploading to a burner cloud account. By evening, Harlan cracked a bottle of bourbon for the ghosts, and we toasted on deck, the gulf a black mirror reflecting fireworks from some tourist barge. You're a Whitaker through and through, he said, clinking glasses. Fire and all, but fire spreads. My phone, a prepaid flip I'd bought in Jacksonville, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Found you.
Bitch.
Gulf Coast ain't big enough. P. Preston.
How?
Dad's PI. Probably. Old money buys eyes everywhere. Panic spiked. But Harlan was calm. Time to move. Miami next, my contact at the Times. But first, a detour. The detour was Siesta Keys Cemetery, a moonlit sprawl of headstones. Harlan led me to a plot marked Harlan Whitaker, 1928 to 1994, granite etched with lies. He knelt, tracing the name. Faked my own grave. Salt in there wound. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Not anymore. Dawn brought heat and haste. We trailered Wanderlust to a buddy's dock in Fort Lauderdale, ex-Navy SEAL, Harlan's insurance policy, and hopped a puddle jumper to Miami. The news hit mid-flight, my tip letters leaking online. ProPublica dropping a teaser article. Whitaker empire built on buried scandals? Twitter, X now. But same cesspool erupted. Whitakergate trending. Memes of Dad as Tony Soprano. Preston as the bumbling henchman. Landing at MIA. Chaos awaited. Reporters swarming baggage claim. Mics thrusting like bayonets. Delilah Whitaker. Is it true your grandfather's alive? Flashbulbs popped. A hand grabbed my arm. Security peeled them off. But the damage was viral. Harlan, disguised in a Panama hat and shades, steered us to a waiting town car. Told you, fire burns hot. Our contact was Elena Vasquez, a hard-hitting investigative reporter with a corner office overlooking Biscayne Bay. Mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper questions. You drop this bomb and vanish, she said, scanning the drives. Ballsy. But why now?
Timing, I lied.
Family intervention gone wrong. Harlan's stage shadowed. Uncle Harlan, for the record. Elena leaned back, steepling fingers. This is Pulitzer shit, corporate espionage, environmental crimes, faked death.
But blowback?
You'll need protection. Feds already circling. She wasn't wrong. By nightfall, we were in a safe house in Coconut Grove, government subsidized. Elena's pull, a stucco bungalow with bars on the windows and a detail car idling outside. Harlan paced, pipe clenched unlit. They'll come hard.
Dealy.
Edward's not one to fold. He was right. 2 a.m. Glass shattered downstairs, a brick through the kitchen window. Note attached. Run. Little girl. Or join the fishes. Family.
Crude.
But the signature? Mom's looping E. I scooped it up. Gloved hands. For evidence. They're scared. Scared animals bite. Harlan growled. Dawn brought warrants. SEC raiding the tower. FBI hauling Uncle Theo in cuffs. His mugshot plastered on cyan. Orange jumpsuit. Face like a deflated balloon. Preston's X account blew up with denials. Fake news. Delilah's unhinged, always was. But the tapes leaked. His voice tinny and damning. Yeah.
You left help.
Family business. Mom called then. My old phone somehow forwarded. Delilah.
Please.
This is madness. Come home, we can fix it. For Daddy.
Daddy.
The man who'd greenlit my murder. Fix what?
Mom?
The dead workers? The fake grave? Or just your Botox bill when the money dries up? Silence. Then a sob, real or rehearsed. You don't understand. Harlan started it. His greed built this. We just survived. Survived on lies. I hung up, chest tight. The controversial call. Go public with everything, including her. Air the dirty laundry, the abortion, the forgeries. Destroy the matriarch to save the truth. Harlan watched, eyes knowing. Hard choice,
Girl.
but necessary. We fed Elena the full cash by noon. Press conference at 3 p.m. Miami Federal Courthouse steps. Cameras everywhere. Heat pressing like a vice. I stepped to the podium. Harlan at my elbow. Out of the grave. Into the light. Ladies and gentlemen, I began. Voice steady despite the quake in my knees. The Whitaker family didn't build an empire. We buried one. And today, the bodies rise. Questions flew. Is Harlan alive? Murder plot. But I held the line, doling facts like rations. Harlan spoke next. Gravelly testimony that hushed the crowd. I faked my death to expose corruption. My family chose darkness. My granddaughter chose light. The twist hit like a sucker punch. A reporter from the back. Mike thrust forward. MS. Whitaker.
Sources say you.
Died last year. Care to comment? My blood iced.
How?
A leak from the PI. Or worse, time's echo bleeding through? Harlan's hand found mine.
Squeezing.
Not today, he murmured. But the seed was planted. As we retreated to the safe house, sirens wailing in the distance, Dad's arrest imminent, the real storm brewed. Preston's last text. You think you're the hero? Wait for the sequel. Revenge tasted like ash.
Sweet.
But scorching. The safe house became a bunker. Blinds drawn against the Miami glare. Takeout cartons piling like sandbags. Elena's feeds ran nonstop. Headlines screaming, Whitaker heir exposes dynasty of deceit. Stock tickers plunging Whitaker holdings into penny stock purgatory. Board members jumped ship. Lawsuits bloomed like kudzu. Class actions from Poisontown victims. SEC fines stacking to billions. Dad's arrest aired live, stone-faced in cuffs. No comment as agents frog-marched him from the tower. Mom? Voluntary surrender. Pearls swapped for a pantsuit. Her lawyer spinning coerced involvement. Bullshit. The tapes had her voice. Cool as cucumber. Burn it all. Edward. Legacy first. Preston went underground, last ping from a burner in Atlantic City. Hold up in a casino penthouse. Blowing trust fund remnants on blackjack and blow. He's unraveling, Elena reported. Scrolling his frantic DMs to influencers. Pay me to spill. Inside dirt on Delilah. I laughed.
Bitter.
Let him. More rope. Harlan. Ever the strategist. Mapped our endgame on a whiteboard scavenged from the garage. Testify at the trials. Seize the company remnants through probate. Turns out. Faking death voids wills. But blood heirs prevail.
Me?
As the named legacy bearer. We'd rebuild clean, green energy pivot. Scholarships for the screwed over. Poetic justice. But nights were hell. Dreams merged timelines. Marcus's shove morphing into Preston's lunge. Mom's face at my bedside post-fall. Whispering. It was for the best. I'd wake sweating. Harlan snores from the couch, a lifeline. This the cost of fire?
Ide muta.
Every spark's got smoke. Dealy, he'd reply. Passing the bourbon. But you? You're the flame that lasts. The controversial pivot came a week in. Mom's deal offer. Funneled through back channels. Reduced sentence for full confession. Naming accomplices. Forfeiting assets. In exchange, immunity for me on any ancillary charges. Like what? The brick was theirs. But whispers grew. My death, last year. The reporter's question. Had I fabricated it for sympathy? Or worse, staged evidence? Elena's warning echoed. Public loves a villain. But heroes? They gotta be spotless. I paced the kitchen, Harlan watching. Take the deal, he urged. Let her rot alone. You've won. But winning felt hollow. Mom had sung me lullabies. Bandaged skinned knees. Betrayal cut deeper for the love it twisted. The decision, reject it. Go to trial. Drag her lies into the light. Cause the controversy, tabloids screaming, daughter destroys mother. But truth over mercy. You sure? Harlan asked, eyes searching.
For the ghosts, I said.
And me. Trial season hit like a hurricane. Federal courthouse in Manhattan. Jury of working stiffs eyeing us like zoo exhibits. Dad's defense. Rogue elements. Pinning it on Theo. But the tapes played. His voice damning. Harlan had to go, for the family. Mom took the stand. A ghost in Chanel, pale.
Pleading.
I did it for my girls, she sobbed, eyes locking on mine. Delilah. Forgive. Which girl? Mom, I interjected from the gallery. Voice carrying. Objection overruled. My lawyer, a bulldog from Elena's Rolodex, had prepped the drama. The one you buried alive. Or the one you tried to kill. Gasps rippled. Her facade cracked. Confessions spilling. The leukemia lie. The forgeries. The nod to handle me when I dug too deep. Jury ate it up. Verdict. Guilty. 25 to life. Dad folded next day. Plea bargain crumbling under cross-exam. Preston? Extradited from a Vegas flop. High and howling innocence till the audio dropped him. I'd do her again for the shares. Guilty all. Sentences stacked like Jenga. Decades behind bars. Fortune seized. Harlan and I reclaimed the empire's husk, rebranding as Whitaker Renewables. Groundbreaking in Pennsylvania, solar arrays on tainted land, workers from the old spills cutting the ribbon. But the twist waited in the wings. Post-trial. A letter arrived at the new HQ, penthouse mine now. Views clearer than vengeance. Postmark, Atlantic City. Preston scrawl. You think you won? Check the DNA. Attached, a lab report, yellowed. Dated 1994. My birth certificate? No, Harlan's accident autopsy. Rushed and falsified. But the kicker, a paternity test, buried in the files. Dad wasn't my father. Harlan was. The boating trip impregnating Mom. A scandal hushed with the fake death. I was the blood heir. Not just legacy, his daughter. Hidden to protect me from the machine. I confronted him on the terrace. City lights sprawling below. Why lie?
He sighed.
Pipe glowing. To keep you safe. Edward raised you. Better the devil you know. Rage flared. Then faded. Another betrayal. But rooted in love. We're square now, I said, hugging him. Dad. The happy ending? Not fairy tale clean. Scars lingered, therapy for the death echoes. Lila drifting after the media frenzy. She'd sold her story. Regretted it. But I walked the boardrooms unafraid. Lila by my side as COO. Harlan consulting from his yacht. Wanderlust rechristened Thunder Road. Revenge wasn't destruction, it was rebirth. They said he died before I was born. But his evidence? It made me live, twice over.